What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Monday, March 3rd, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 23:01 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Eastern Europe and also from here in the United States. So, according to multiple sources in the mainstream media, including Axios, Bloomberg, and Fox News, President Trump has decided to pause all U.S. military aid to Ukraine. And this is being reported by a DoD official. Apparently, the flow of arms will not resume until Trump determines the Ukrainians show a commitment to good faith peace negotiations. A senior Pentagon official speaking on the condition of anonymity told Bloomberg that the halt to military aid to Ukraine includes all military aid in transit and waiting in transit areas in Poland. A senior Trump administration official told Fox News that this is not a permanent termination of aid, it's a pause, the official emphasized. The orders are going out right now. Wow. Okay, so the Trump administration officially pausing U.S. military aid to Ukraine, basically to get Zelensky to sign the minerals agreement and, more importantly, force Zelensky to sign a peace deal with Putin. So basically, Trump is trying to strong-arm Zelensky and Ukraine into a peace deal with Russia, forcing Ukraine into a peace deal. This is absolutely huge news. And tonight, Ukraine struck 2 more oil refineries in Russia. A fire broke out at the Syzran refinery, 800 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. And then there was also a fire at the Novoshakhtinsk refinery in Rostov, all resulting from drone attacks, okay? So in the last 24 hours, Ukraine has hit 3 Russian oil refineries. The one they hit yesterday was 1,000 miles away from the Ukrainian border. Wow. Okay, so Ukraine really trying to hit Russia where it hurts. 45% of the Russian federal budget is reliant on oil and gas revenues, okay? And tonight we have U.S. nuclear forces on high alert for some reason. We have a U.S. Nuke Sniffer plane off the coast of Florida for some reason. It was flying really low over central Florida, and then it went out towards the Bahamas and just north of the Bahamas, and that is very, very unusual. These planes detect radiation in the atmosphere. They can also detect nuclear-powered submarines, so potentially they're trying to find any Russian or Chinese nuclear subs off the coast of Florida, which happens to be where Mar-a-Lago is located. We also have a nuclear war command and control plane that took off from Tinker Air Force Base, which is the home base of these planes, an E-6B Mercury, and it's going straight out into the Pacific, which is pretty unusual for this late at night. And we also have a U.S. strategic reconnaissance plane that was flying in Nebraska, looking up towards Canada, potentially scanning for any missile threats coming over the pole. And then we also have more heavy reconnaissance along the border with Mexico in Texas, a P-8 Poseidon Subhunter flying along the Tex-Mex border. And the Trump administration appears to have repurposed these P-8 Poseidons to function as land surveillance planes. Typically, they're used to detect submarines, and now they're using them to patrol the Mexican border. So huge news, guys. Okay, Trump pausing all military aid to Ukraine, basically trying to get Ukraine to sign a peace agreement with Russia, basically forcing Ukraine to do it. And also, Trump will be announcing 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Okay, so guys, get prepared. The escalation is continuing. Okay, please don't stop preparing yourselves. Okay, World War III is inevitable. There's nothing we can do about it. It's written in the Bible. Okay, here we have video footage of the Sizran oil refinery in Russia that was hit by a drone today. Look at that huge fire there, guys. Okay, so it's burning like crazy. And then here we have the other oil refinery in the Rostov region. And the Vice President of the U.S., J.D. Vance, spoke with Sean Hannity today on Fox News, and I wanted to just play some clips for you, and I wanted to just read some of his statements during the interview. So he claimed in the interview that he asked Trump for the conversation with Zelensky to be private, but Trump said no. He also said that the president tried to be diplomatic with Zelensky even when he was being dishonest. He also said that the only president where the Russians didn't take a lot of territory in Ukraine was Donald Trump. He said if Zelensky calls and has a serious proposal, we've already talked with the Russians. If that happens, he can come back. He also said it's diplomacy 101. You have to have a reasonable relationship with Putin to start the conversation. The president knows that if you want real security guarantees to ensure Putin does not invade again, the best security guarantee is to give Americans an economic upside in Ukraine. That's much better than troops that haven't fought a war in 20 to 30 years. Okay, very interesting. He also apparently was told by Trump to send Zelensky home after the argument. And Vance also said that Zelensky wasn't there, and frankly, Zelensky still isn't there in the peace process, basically saying that Zelensky's mindset is totally different than what Trump's mindset is. Okay, Trump wants to stay neutral. He wants to end the war, and Zelensky wants to continue fighting on. So they have a fundamental disagreement there. And Vance said, I don't care what Zelensky says about me or anybody else. He said President Trump has a great relationship with a lot of European heads of state, and so do I, but they have to be realistic. He said also, my message to Ukrainians, when you've lost Lindsey Graham, you have to come to the negotiating table. And he was basically saying, that Lindsey Graham said that Zelensky was out of line. And Lindsey Graham is like one of the number one supporters of Ukraine, or he was. And Vance also said we couldn't get the Ukrainians to a point where they'd talk about peace. I understand the rage, but this war cannot go on forever. The door is open as long as Zelensky is open to discussing peace. This is not going to make anyone happy. The Russians will have to give up stuff. The Ukrainians will have to give up stuff. And Vance said that Putin said he is willing to talk peace. We trust and verify. And Vance said it's in the best interest of the U.S., Russia, and Europe to end this war. And Vance also said that Biden called Putin every word in the book. And what did that lead to? War and conflict. He also said that in Ukraine, the economy is depressed. You have a lot of dead Ukrainians. And he also said our European friends are doing a disservice to the Ukrainians. Their own populations are saying they don't want to fund the war indefinitely. And Vance said that in private, European leaders have told them that they want to end the war quickly. And Vance also said that this cannot go on forever. There aren't enough Ukrainian lives, American money, or ammunition. He also said throwing money and ammunition at a terrible conflict is not a strategy. And Zelensky released a statement saying Ukraine is ready for real peace instead of endless war. He says that what is needed to accomplish that is security guarantees. He argued that the lack of security guarantees is what has kept the war going since 2014. Okay, so Zelensky is not showing any signs of moderating his position. This is what he was saying at the meeting before there was the big blowout. Okay, he was saying that without security guarantees, Russia's going to attack them again. and doesn't look like the White House is moderating their stance. So I don't think there's going to be any peace deal, guys. I told you guys for weeks there's not going to be a peace deal. Too much blood has been spilled. This part of the world has been fighting for hundreds of years, okay? And it's just nearly impossible to get peace to a region like that, okay? There's so much bad blood now between Ukrainians and Russians, all right? Want to just play a clip here of Vance speaking with Hannity.
And then when it really went off the rails, of course, is when I asked, or you had a Polish journalist who asked a question, the president answered it, and then I answered it. And then something about my answer just really set Zelensky off. So then he came at me.
So you're blaming yourself.
Then I went back at him.
Right.
And what I tried to do originally was actually try to diffuse the situation a little bit. Because I'm like, you know, we're having this meeting. Obviously, there are 100 television cameras here. Let's try to have this conversation in private. And then the president, as we kept on going back and forth, I tried again to say, well, maybe we should have this conversation in private. And the president was like, nope, actually, I don't want to have it in private anymore. I want to have this actual conversation in public for the American people to see.
Interesting. And then here's another clip.
And I do think that there was just a certain sense of, there was a lack of respect, there was a certain sense of entitlement, and most importantly, look, we can look past all of that stuff, but the president has set a very clear goal for his administration. He wants the killing to stop. And I think that it's very important that President Zelensky, and of course President Putin too, they've both got to come to the negotiating table, and that's ultimately where things broke apart. I really don't care what President Zelensky says about me or anybody else, but he showed a clear unwillingness to engage in the peace process that President Trump has said is the policy of the American people and of their president. That's the real breakdown, is I think Zelensky wasn't yet there, and I think frankly now still isn't there, but I think he'll get there eventually. He has to.
So he's basically saying that it's nothing personal with Zelensky. It's just that, you know, he has a fundamental disagreement with Zelensky on how this peace should work out. And then here's Zelensky. I'll have to read off what he says. He says the baseline scenario is to hold positions and create conditions for proper diplomacy for the soonest possible end to this war with a decent peace. We need peace, real fair peace, not endless war. And we need security guarantees. It was precisely the lack of security guarantees for Ukraine 11 years ago that allowed Russia to start with the occupation of Crimea and the war in Donbass. Then the absence of security guarantees allowed Russia to launch the full-scale invasion. And now, because there are still no defined security guarantees, it is Russia that is keeping this war going. The whole world sees this. The whole world acknowledges this. Wow. Okay, so Zelensky pushing back, okay, saying that peace is pointless if you don't have security guarantees, if there's no enforcement of the peace agreement. And I want to update you guys on some other information coming out of Israel. So it looks like Israel is getting ready to go back to war with Hamas. We know that the Trump administration freed up tens of thousands of bombs over the weekend to be delivered to Israel in an emergency delivery. And now Israeli Channel 13 is reporting that Hamas is preparing to resume fighting with Israel. We know that Israel has begun to call up 400,000 reserves, which is a massive amount considering that Israel only has 465,000 reserves total. So they're calling up 90+% of their reserves, and they're getting tens of thousands of bombs. So things are about to get crazy in the Middle East, okay? It looks like they're going to try to take over Gaza completely in accordance with Trump's vision for Gaza. And the Pentagon announced that U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth held a phone call with the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz. During the conversation, Hegseth reaffirmed the U.S.'s unwavering commitment to Israel's security and emphasized the unbreakable bond between the two nations. Both officials agreed that Iran poses a significant threat to regional stability and pledged to collaborate in addressing this challenge. Wow. So notice the topic was Iran. Okay, everything leads back to Iran. And what's very contradictory with Trump is that he wants to make peace with Russia and potentially even have economic deals with Russia. But Russia actually supports Hamas and has funded Hamas and funded Hezbollah and continues to help Iran. They're actually giving nuclear scientists to Iran to help them with their nuclear program. And yet Trump wants to make good with Putin. So he's in a way backstabbing Israel, okay, by, going around Netanyahu's back and trying to make buddies with Putin. And Canada will impose retaliatory tariffs on the United States. I want to read to you this official statement from Trudeau dated March the 3rd today. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, today issued the following statement on unjustified U.S. tariffs against Canada. Today, after a 30-day pause, the U.S. administration has decided to proceed with imposing 25% tariffs on Canadian exports and 10% tariffs on Canadian energy. Let me be unequivocally clear, there is no justification for these actions. While less than 1% of the fentanyl intercepted at the U.S. border comes from Canada, we have worked relentlessly to address this scourge that affects Canadians and Americans alike. We implemented a $1.3 billion border plan with new choppers, boots on the ground, more coordination, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. We appointed a fentanyl czar, listed transnational criminal cartels as terrorist organizations, launched the Joint Operational Intelligence Cell, and are establishing a Canada-U.S. Joint Strike Force on organized crime. Because of this work in partnership with the U.S., fentanyl seizures from Canada have dropped 97% between December 2024 and January 2025 to a near zero low of 0.03 pounds seized by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Canada will not let this unjustified decision go unanswered. Should American tariffs come into effect tonight, Canada will, effective at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, respond with 25% tariffs against $155 billion of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion on American products in 21 days' time. Our tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. trade action is withdrawn, and should U.S. tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures. While we urge the U.S. administration to reconsider their tariffs, Canada remains firm in standing up for our economy, our jobs, our workers, and for a fair deal. Because of the tariffs imposed by the U.S., Americans will pay more for groceries, gas, and cars, and potentially lose thousands of jobs. Tariffs will disrupt an incredibly successful trading relationship. They will violate the very trade agreement that was negotiated by President Trump in his last term. Wow. Okay, so guys, things are really getting crazy. We're about to go into a full-blown trade war with our neighbor, Canada, longtime ally of over 100 years. We're now going to be going into this big trade war, 25% tariffs on them. Okay, they're going to have higher tariffs placed on them than what Trump is going to place on China. China's going to have 20% tariffs, Canada 25%. So this is huge news, guys. Okay, and it sounds like this was never really about the fentanyl. It sounds like Trump was just using that as an excuse to justify the tariffs. Sounds like he basically wanted to impose these tariffs because of the trade deficit with Canada, because the U.S. imports a lot from Canada, and he basically wants to equalize, or you could say maybe punish Canada for being a larger exporter, and he wants to reduce American dependence on Canada. And what's concerning here is that he specifically says that there's going to be discussions with provinces and territories to pursue non-tariff measures. So he hinted at this a couple of weeks back when the first threat came out. He said that we could even shut off oil supplies to the U.S. And if they do that, guys, gas prices, diesel prices are going to skyrocket, okay? So, if you're a farmer, if you rely on large amounts of fuel for your business, you better stock up your fuel storages now, okay? Because it looks like fuel prices are going to potentially skyrocket, okay? Because Canada does have us by the balls as far as oil, okay? We're dependent on Canada for a lot of oil. And the Chinese Commerce Ministry said that they're urging the U.S. to immediately withdraw their unilateral tariff measures that are unreasonable and groundless, okay? So, guys, things are escalating. Please make sure you continue to prepare. And I'll be back tomorrow with more breaking news. In the meantime, download my app from the Google Play Store. It's 100% free. I'm going to be making an Apple app very soon. It should be released in the coming days or weeks. And the app just allows me to notify you when things are going down, and also allows me to send out these updates to you directly, so it's not through YouTube or other social media platforms who have a reputation of censoring. Okay, don't rely on YouTube notifications. Okay, download my app so you're always staying in the loop. And also check out my Telegram and Twitter. Follow me on Rumble as well. I post all my updates to Telegram, Twitter, and Rumble. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by NYPrepper Supply. Guys, NYPrepper Supply is doing a massive sale on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. They're selling their 3-month emergency food supply for just $600, so that's $100 off the normal price. And this is 3 months of food at 2,000 calories per day. Has a shelf life of up to 25 years, and all of this is packed into 6 rugged water-resistant buckets, and free shipping is included. And they're also offering a disaster replacement warranty, so if your food supply gets destroyed by a natural disaster, they'll replace it for you with no charge. And they also will provide you with free survival books and information, including a natural disaster field guide, a survival Bible digital copy. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get $100 off the NYPrepper Supply 3-month emergency food supply, and the link is in the description below this video.